Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm not on double time anymore before we get started. Okay, perfect. So, imposter syndrome is just a branch of self doubt. So, self doubt is composed of three different categories, if you will. One being imposter syndrome, one being indecisiveness, and the last being self sabotage. So the reason why I have to distinguish that is because people say, why do you say self doubt and imposter syndrome? Isn't it one and the same? But it's actually different because self doubt encompasses imposter syndrome, but imposter syndrome is its own branch of self doubt. And what imposter syndrome is, the simplest way to put it is it's the little voice in your head that is telling you that you don't belong, that you're a fraud, that everything you've done doesn't matter. It doesn't hold any weight because you still don't measure up to everyone around you. So it's this little feeling of fraud that lives within you, and it really can cause harm. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but I wanted to dive deeper into imposter syndrome. So there's an expert named Dr. Valerie Young, and she broke imposter syndrome up into five different categories. The first one is the perfectionist. This is the person who sets the really high goals, and when they don't achieve them, all of a sudden, they feel really down, and, they start to feel that self doubt because they are not accomplishing these really high achievable goals, or maybe they're not achievable, but this is the person who, everything has to be so perfect. They don't step out and take a leap because everything has to line up right. Like all the stars have to align. And a lot of times that causes paralysis because people don't move because they're too busy waiting for perfection when perfection doesn't really exist. The next one is the superwoman, super syndrome. So that falls under imposter syndrome. This is the person who is always working the hardest. They have to constantly prove themselves to feel like they would measure up with others. Then you have the natural genius. So this person, they have always been great at everything that they've always done. They don't really measure um, they don't really measure their efforts. What they measure is the ease and the speed of how they're able to process information or pick up a skill. So that's the natural genius. Then you have the soloist. This person does not ask for help because they don't want to be revealed as being an imposter. They don't want to be revealed as if they don't know something. So they would rather just try to figure it out themselves, work alone, because they never want someone questioning their competence. And then the fifth one is the expert. So this is the person who thinks that they have to be the subject matter expert on any topic. This is the person who won't apply for a job if they don't meet every single qualification that's listed in the job description. So this person, they really measure themselves on what and how much they know. And if they don't feel like they're an expert, they start to have the self doubt and doubt themselves. So those are the five categories of imposter syndrome, if you will. But essentially, it all boils down to feeling fraudulent in some way.
So I have a quick question. Can people be more than one of those? Can they fit more than one of those categories at a time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can give you an example of that.
Yes, please.
And I think, and I want to say women because women is my target audience. That's who I work with primarily. And I see it all the time with the superwoman syndrome, the feeling of, having to do everything, not wanting to ask for help because, we got it. We got it. You know how we are. But then also not taking the leap of faith because of waiting for perfection. So you can literally fall into multiple, if not all of these categories of imposter syndrome. Maybe some can overlap at the same time, but some could be in different aspects of your life as well that you can be experiencing one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, from our talk, you expressed to me that you had experienced imposter syndrome at actually a very young age before you could even identify it. Can you tell everybody else kind of what that experience was so they can get kind of a real life example of maybe things that could be going on that we don't know how to label properly and they're in tackle?
Absolutely. It was my senior year of high school, and I received a letter that invited me to go to the White House. And only well, I'm not sure the exact number, but there weren't a whole lot of students being invited, but it would be the students who were like the top of their classes all across the country. And when I got that letter, I was so excited. My dad, he took me out to different businesses and we raised funds to where I wouldn't have to come out of my own pocket for a plane ticket to get to DC to visit the White House. And I was just so excited about it. And then that's when the imposter syndrome sunk in. And I started telling myself, wait a minute, you're not good enough to go to the White House. You don't know these other students who are going to be here. You may not measure up. Don't go. So that's what the voice inside of my head was telling me, that I wasn't good enough to go to the White House to experience this amazing experience with all of these awesome students around the country because I did not belong there. I was not good enough. I was feeling like a fraud, like the letter that I received had to be some mistake because I didn't deserve that letter. I didn't deserve that experience. And to this day, I still regret it. I still, obviously at that time, I did not know what imposter syndrome was, but I knew that feeling that I experienced, I know today that that's what imposter syndrome is. And I missed out on a once in a lifetime opportunity because of imposter syndrome.
Wow, wow, that is so powerful. So, I mean, when was the first time that you realized you had been suffering from imposter syndrome?
Well, that was the first experience that I can remember, but it wasn't until I was an adult that I actually knew that this was a real thing. And I may have heard someone mention it, mention the topic of imposter syndrome. And then I started connecting the dots and I started reflecting on my life and reflecting on different situations and experiences that I had. And that's how I was able to label that particular experience as imposter syndrome.
Okay. So, I mean, how did you work through that? Once you actually realized it, what was your first step to kind of tackling it and getting it out of your life, or did you tackle it right away?
Well, I didn't tackle it right away. I decided I wanted to dig deeper on this topic and do more research to figure out where does this come from? Why was I feeling like that? And I could tell you that it came from my upbringing. It came from, and I'm speaking it today because I am a first generation college graduate. I'm a first generation corporate America worker. I'm a first generation woman entrepreneur in my family. So all of those things, that is what led, I guess you could say, to imposter syndrome for me as an adult. So, the things that I have done after researching it and really diving deep is I came up with 5 ways that I have implemented in my life to overcome these negative, crazy thoughts that go on in my head, which is imposter syndrome. For one, is I acknowledge it. I acknowledge it. Like, why am I thinking this about myself? I know I'm certified. I know I'm qualified. I have the degrees, I have the certifications, I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the skills, I have the talent. So why am I feeling this way? So that's the first thing. I had to acknowledge it. I had to affirm myself, to tell myself all of those things that I just mentioned. But then I like to use I am statements. I am smart. I am strong. I am enough. I am supposed to be here. I am qualified. So affirmations have been key. Affirmations. Remember, like separating feeling from fact. We have to remember that what we feel is not the truth. It's a feeling. It's not factual. Because for me, like taking on roles and in leadership as I've advanced my career, I had to remember they hired me for a reason. So while I'm sitting here feeling doubtful and feeling like a fraud in this space, it's not fact. It's not fact. The fact is, I'm here for a reason. I'm here because not only am I qualified, but who put me here obviously saw that I belonged here. The folks that hired me, God says so. So I'm here. That's the fact, right? It's not the feeling. So that's another thing. And also reminding myself, that everyone has to start somewhere. Everybody has to start from the beginning. And so remembering that and not, comparing myself to other people because it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people, especially when you can hop on Instagram or, social media and see what other people have going on. But remembering that everybody had to start at the beginning. So you can't compare yourself, your start, to somebody else's, I don't know, 20 years. You can't do that.
Right.
So, the comparison thing also is really heavy in imposter syndrome. Always looking to see what other people are doing. But then also giving myself grace to say, you know what? This is new. This is something different. I'm not going to be an expert as soon as I start. So there goes that expert part of imposter syndrome. That's how I shut that part down because I'm not going to be an expert when I first start. I have to learn and it's okay. And I even like using the new card now more than ever to give myself that grace. You know what? I'm new at this. I'm asking questions. I'm trying to learn. So that's another one. And then rewarding myself for my accomplishments. Oftentimes we're looking on to the next thing. We've achieved this goal, we're on to the next. But taking a moment to sit there and say, you know what, I did that. I accomplished this goal. I got this degree. I finished the certification. I'm going to reward myself for it. And then remembering that perfection does not exist. I don't know why that one is so hard. Everybody wants to be perfect, but it doesn't exist. Strive for excellence. So we can have an off day. That's why I tell myself, you know what? Every day is not going to be a great day. I can have an off day, but I know I'm going to make up for it. So, this off day doesn't define me because I know I'm amazing. I know I'm going to pick up whatever slack that I didn't get done this day the next day. And I don't have to be an expert at everything. I need to know where the resources are. That's it. I don't have to be the expert. So that's all I have for that one.
No, I love that. I love it. I love it because what I'm hearing is that we need to be gentle with ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves the way we take care of our kids, and to just really be okay with it not being exactly how we imagined. But especially, like you were saying, celebrating those wins, even the small things like I woke up on time today. I got dressed before all the kids got up and before everyone got up, and I was prepared and ready for them. That is an accomplishment. And so, just
Yes, it
like you said,
is.
right? So, just being able to acknowledge that we did that thing, no matter how small, that is so key. And I love the I am statements, the affirmations. Now, I know this took a long time for you to build and develop this. You shared your journey with your own experience with imposter syndrome, and now you're an expert in it. You're teaching other people how to overcome it. So with your career and background, how has that kind of supported um, your desire to focus on imposter syndrome? You told me that you work in teaching adults. So, how has all of that kind of played a part into your experience?
Yeah, so it has played a part in my experience. I would say, for starters, when I graduated from college, my very first job that I had after graduation was running a Target store. So, leadership. I've studied leadership and I've studied psychology, and that's really what sparked my interest. It's more so like the organizational behavioral psychology and just how we overcome different challenges and adversities that we are faced with. So that does go back to me always being in leadership. I mean, not only was my first job out of college, like I said, as a Target store manager, but even going back to high school, I was always in a leadership role. I was on the student council. I was on in DECA. I was always someone who was viewed as a leader. And so I continued that path into leadership. And right now, I do work in a corporate job as well as, I have my own business. But my corporate job is I am a leader in a corporate legal department where I lead a team and there's 22 women in my department. So I have 22 women that look to me for leadership. And I have, the opportunity to shape lives because I have studied self-doubt, because I have studied imposter syndrome, and I can help those women work through those challenges in addition to the women who I coach in my own business. So it literally just crosses the board of alignment with everything that I do, as far as helping other people to see where they have doubt in themselves and how I can allow them to release that self doubt so that they can fill that space with self worth, self compassion, self love. Absolutely. And I'm so mindful of that. And, not only am I pouring into women literally all day because of my business and my corporate position, but I have family. I am a mom. I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, and I have a husband. And, I have my mom who's actually in the audience right now. But, one of those things that you just have to be mindful of. And I love that statement that you can't pour from an empty cup because it's so true, is refilling myself. So as a coach, I have to be coached because how can I be an effective coach if I don't have someone coaching me? And I think for anyone who is in a leadership role or looking to advance in their positions or as an entrepreneur, you have to seek a coach. And you want someone who can really pour into you to when you go and you're working with other people and leading them, that you are full before you try to pour.
That's right. That's right. And hello, Mom. Thanks for joining us. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's in the room today, and who's tuned in online. Just as a refresher, this is Love in You. This is the first episode of the Love in You series. And we're tackling imposter syndrome and self doubt with Shar C. Smith. And she is an expert in imposter syndrome and self doubt. And she also has a really awesome free resource on her Instagram, 5 ways to overcome imposter syndrome. So I recommend each of you to go ahead and press on her picture and go to her Instagram and download that resource. So Shar, we're gonna transition slowly into questions from the audience, but I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of give any last words about whatever you think is important for the ladies to take away from this, and then maybe also give your contact information.
Absolutely. Yeah, if I could leave you with any final thoughts on this topic, is that you are enough. And I think we just have to remind ourselves that. We have to remind ourselves that we have so many gifts that God has instilled in us. We've worked hard for the achievements and accomplishments that we have. So there is no reason why we should walk around feeling like a fraud. We are not frauds. We are qualified. We are certified. We are amazing beyond our own imagination. We don't even know our greatness. We really don't. And so if we could just remind ourselves of that. Remind ourselves that we can learn. If there's something that intimidates us, guess what? We can just learn how to do it, or we can find a resource to do it. We don't have to feel imposter syndrome because of it. And that would be my final thoughts on that. It's just we just we don't have to walk around feeling like imposters. And I know that imposter syndrome is something that does not go away. We just need to know how to manage it. We need to know how to overcome it. And when we hear that little negative inner critic inside of our head telling us that we're not good enough or we shouldn't be where we are, we need to go tell that inner critic to go have several seats. And I just added, we need to tell them to have a stadium full of the seats, because that inner critic is not going to stop us from accomplishing our dreams and our goals and everything that we have set out and that God has set out for us to accomplish. So those are my final words on that. Yes, please follow me on Clubhouse. You can click my picture and follow me here. You can also follow me on Instagram at Shar C. Smith. I'm on LinkedIn at Shar C. Smith, everywhere at Shar C. Smith. So definitely, you can feel free to DM me if you have any questions about this topic that maybe you don't want to ask live. Feel free to DM me. And again, I do have a free resource. And it does cover a lot of the topics that I talked about. And it's called the 5 Ways to Overcome Imposter Syndrome. So definitely download that resource. And again, I mean, I am here to help. I want to see everybody win. I don't want our negative thoughts to stop us from achieving our goals.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. So well put, and so many nuggets of wisdom in real practical ways that we can just really help better ourselves. So, as I mentioned, it's about 6:30 right now. I am going to open it up for questions. I see Miss Myra. She has her hand up. She's been waiting. I appreciate that. I'm going to call you up, but I do want to let you know that this session is being shared, and it's being shared on my YouTube. So when you get on, I would like to hear your verbal approval for your voice to be recorded, and then feel free to just go right into your question. All right, Miss Myra, I'm welcoming you up now.
For letting me speak, and you do have my verbal approval. This is actually my first time on the platform, So I do want to start
Welcome
there.
to
Welcome.
Clubhouse.
Hey.
Thank you very much. I'm navigating and learning my way around, and I'm so glad that I joined this platform today. I did have a question. I've been in human resources, gosh, for many trips around the sun, and have had and continue to enjoy my career. My question as it relates to imposter syndrome has to do with, what happens when you develop this after like a legit big mistake, a legit failure. It's great to, understand and recognize that we have these certifications. We're on this journey. We've had the practical experience in our fields and our lines of work. But, as human beings, we do hit roads. We make mistakes. We have to have those experiences. How does a person recover from those moments that may drag them into that imposter syndrome type mindset?
That is an
That is an
excellent
excellent
question. Wow. Thank you
question.
so much for
Wow. Thank you so
asking
much for
it.
asking it.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
mistakes happen.
mistakes happen.
And, sometimes they could
And,
be very
sometimes they
costly
can be very
mistakes
costly mistakes
financially. Sometimes they
financially.
could even cost us our career,
Sometimes it could
just
even
depending
cost
on
us
how
our
big or
career,
small
depending
the
on how big
mistake
or small
is.
the
And it is
mistake
very
is. And it
valid
is
to
very
feel that
valid
way. It's
to feel that
valid to
way.
feel like an
It's valid
imposter
to feel like
after
an
you've made a
imposter
mistake.
after you've made a mistake.
However, just some of
However,
the ways
just some
that
of
you
the
could
ways that
try
you could
to
try to
overcome a
overcome a
situation like
situation
that
like that
is to tell
is to
yourself
tell
that,
yourself
yes,
that
first you want to acknowledge it. Obviously,
acknowledge
you made the mistake, but we learn from our mistakes. And I
mistakes.
guess that goes back
That
into,
goes
are
back
you
into,
perfect? No.
no.
So maybe,
So
use
maybe
that
use that
opportunity.
opportunity after that mistake to talk to someone. Like, so you have to remind yourself, like, that it's that you are going to learn from that, and you're not going to do it again. So you have to then reinforce yourself to say, what, that was a big deal. I messed up. It was a big deal. I messed up. Because I can't let that define me. I can't let that mistake define who I am. I have to move on. I have to figure out a way to encourage myself to want to step up again, to try something else. And maybe that when you encourage yourself to step up again, it's somewhat of redeeming yourself. It's somewhat of, you can use it as a challenge of, I'm going to redeem myself. I'm going to recover. And that goes back to the example that I gave, where I'm like, you may have all day. Nobody's hurt you. You may have all day. You may have days that's for help. But are you going to make up for it? So, and I'm not saying go out and overcompensate and extend yourself or search yourself to try to overcompensate for that mistake. But what I'm saying is you can't let one mistake define you, and you can't keep beating yourself up about it. You have to sit there and have that keyboard, but you still have to pick yourself up and keep moving and keep going and try again. You know, say that dust yourself off and try again. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect. So that is my advice. That is my advice. We have to encourage ourselves. Thank you very much. You're absolutely welcome. There's a song that I love. Oh my gosh, sometimes you have my things. That's great. It shows. I know y'all know that song, but you need to listen to it. Oh my god. We need to really song. We have to stay motivated. We cannot let a mistake define us. We are human. We're not robots. People can't understand that you make a mistake. Then I don't know what's wrong with them because they're not good either. None of us are. That's all I have to say. No, that is great. Sorry. One more thing. I'm sorry. I was going to say one more thing. It's about a guy. Oh, Well, thank you so much, Myra. Did you have any last questions or anything else that you wanted to ask Ms. Shar or myself? No, thank you so much for the time today and giving me my personal taste of participation. And I'll hang on with some of the yes, thanks for being here. And please follow the greenhouse leading work in my name. This is a clip that I created. So I'm the administrator of the club, so please follow me in the club. Yes, I did not mention that, but Ms. Shar, on top of being just an amazing mother, an entrepreneur, and a 9 to 5 working woman, um, she is the founder and leader of Me Working and Mommy. And I must say that I've ran into some really great content on her in her club, and that's why I wanted to tie this conversation with it, in addition to her being our guest today. So definitely take a follow and contribute as you're able. Myra, I'm going to move you back to the audience, and we have another question from Brenda. But before we get to you, Brenda, I just want to do a quick refresher. We're talking about tackling imposter syndrome, self-doubt with Shar Smith. And I just wanted to let you guys know that if you want to ask questions, you're more than welcome to raise your hand. This is a recorded session that will be shared. So I'm just going to ask Brenda, may I have your permission to share your voice off of Clubhouse today? Hi, everyone. Yes, first of all, you have my permission to share my voice on this question from today. So, also my first time on Clubhouse. This is also my first time as a speaker.
Welcome.
Being able to ask questions. So, welcome, Brenda. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, I am. Thank you. Also, I am an HR professional. I actually head up a leadership responsibility group globally. So part of my role is to run leadership programs for every different type of person being a leader in the organization that I work at. And what's interesting is some of those programs are women's programs, and imposter syndrome is always a topic that's added to the agenda. However, it's not a topic that's added to our broader agenda on leadership programs that include men and women. So I wanted to ask you, as an expert in this area, Shar, is imposter syndrome only a topic of conversation? But why is it so heavily weighted on women? And what could you think about when thinking about that? That's an excellent question, Brenda. First, I will say no. It's not just women. Actually, 70% of Americans experience imposter syndrome, and that includes men as well. However, I think that research shows it does heavily affect women, and that goes back to upbringing. It goes back to upbringing and gender roles and what we've been told. So, like for instance, let me give an example. For being a Black woman, imposter syndrome is affect me greater. Why? Because society tells me to feel a certain way. When I say a certain way, society tells me by microaggression that I have to be challenged and faced with every single day, by the way that Black women are portrayed in the media. So these things are societal things that naturally are going to have an impact on the way that we feel about ourselves. It's going to make us question ourselves and doubt ourselves. And a lot of the time, as a Black woman, we have to overcompensate for the feeling. We have to go out and get all of the degrees and all of the certifications and all of the distinctions just so that we can feel good enough. to be, it's have a seat at the table, just so that we can feel good enough to get into the room. All those things. But it's so that we can try to combat imposter syndrome. Right? So that I share that with you because it's so true. It's always going to affect women more. Why? Because women in leadership are the minority. There's not too many women in leadership, right? So that's one thing. Whenever you're a minority in an area, you're going to feel like you don't belong there. When you look around and you see nothing but white around you, and then here you are, a woman sitting there, you're going to immediately feel like I don't belong here. Why am I here? What value do I bring? Like I'm a fraud. Why am I sitting here? Like, so it's a feeling of belonging that also has to do with imposter syndrome. And I'll share an example about being a black woman because of the microaggressions, because of what challenges we have to overcome just to feel good about ourselves. So I hope that helps answer your question. But I can go on this topic all day. Yeah, no, it's definitely answering my question. We do also work on microaggressions and the societal factors. So interesting also when you look at this challenge of imposter syndrome globally, so in different cultures and the way that people are brought up, it really is a fascinating topic. And the people that come from different places and grow up in different cultures, they all experience something different. Yeah, that's so very true. Yeah, and how you I'll also now I'd love to connect with you. So Instagram is not linked to your bio. I don't even tell anything. I can do the profile. Like, don't even have no words in my. Okay, do me a favor. Can you DM me on Instagram because I would love to connect with you more. Sure, that sounds great. I will do that. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Clubhouse. So, Shar, I'm so glad that you mentioned microaggressions. And the reason why is because I have been in circumstances where I was definitely in a position where I earned my way into that role, and I deserved to be there. I would my boss to be there. But the microaggressions of my immediate managers made me feel as though I didn't, and that even I wasn't supported in it. And so that caused me to question myself and my abilities. But in some ways, it kind of combat against other people and their issues and not allowing that to sit on you. Oh, wow. That is a powerful question. And that is what a lot of DEI experts are dealing with right now. It is difficult. It is difficult. And there are not just microaggressions, but I mean, my goodness, there are so many different types of aggressions. It dives really deep, but I'm not going to get into that. But you have to, and oh my gosh, I did this, I'm not saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. You have to come from a place of not compassion, I'm looking for the word. Yeah, it's like, you know, you have to assume it's not the worst for people, right? So you have to assume that there's no harm in what they're saying. Just truly are ignorant, like they truly just don't know what it is that they're saying. And I don't think I'm hesitating on saying this is because it is so difficult. I tell you, it's so much easier said than done. Like, but you have to like almost assume the best and not the worst. You have to assume that, you know, the other man said this person, they don't really know how it affects me. Because remember, they don't know your role. They don't know. A lot of the time they're coming from a place of privilege. So they don't know your experiences. They don't know what triggers you. They don't know what affects you. So you always have to come from that type of place of just like, they don't know what they said to me. But let me educate them. And I know it's not really truly our place to educate them. But if you don't want it to happen again, you have to address it. You have to address it. Or otherwise, they're going to do it again, and you're going to be triggered again, and then you're going to be feeling that way again. And that's also like with feedback. Not everybody who gives you feedback, you need to be listening to it, right? You have to consider the source. You have to consider if they have ill intention, like with what it is that they're saying to you. Like it basically goes back to that. Does that make sense, Jasiri?
That makes total sense. We basically just need to be aware of the full person that we're talking to or who is talking to us, and we need to take it with a grain of salt, more or less, if they don't have good intention, or if that's an assumption based on what their actions have showed.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the person. You have to consider the source, and you have to assume the best that they just truly don't know.
Yeah.
People say stuff all the time, and they really don't know how it impacts you. So as a good leader, I would say for anybody in leadership, is asking people, if something triggers them. Because it could be, you could say something and not even know that it triggers somebody. Like just by saying, well, do you have any questions? Or, well, does that make sense? Or, like, there are just little things that you can say to somebody that could literally trigger them. Yeah. And microaggressions such as, oh, you speak so well, Jasiri. Oh my gosh. So clearly.
Yeah.
You enunciate all of your words, Jasiri. Oh my gosh.
Ooh, I'm getting fired up already. Just hearing you say that now. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but that is a very real thing, and a lot of times I'm going to say we don't know that we're doing it, because I actually got called out on my on my own microaggression that I didn't even realize was a microaggression towards persons who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. And when I was called out on it, I was like, oh, holy smokes, like me, a Black woman who totally goes through these microaggressions daily on, in some circumstances. Like I had an experience where I had to check myself, and that helped me to understand people who are maybe giving me those microaggressions. Because the thing about it is, even if they mean it to be mean, assuming that they have good intent will actually put them in a position where they have to explain themselves, and then that in itself will actually, in my opinion, it will like show who they are and what their intent was.
Oh, absolutely. I'm quick to follow up with what do you mean by that? Can you please explain?
Yeah. Yes. What do you mean? Yes. That's wonderful. Well, I'm just wondering, do we have any more questions in the audience? Because this has been so great. It's really kind of like just broadened my understanding of imposter syndrome, and now I feel like I can go into my world a little bit more confidently, as far as just any kind of discomforts I was feeling. Anything else? Yeah, actually, if that person's question could wait, I would love for you to expound upon those other two categories, and then that way maybe we can even let that question that they have would be even more involved. So go ahead, Shar.
All the time with the folks that I lead in my organization. And when you can't make a decision and you're constantly doubting yourself, that can be destructive. Like, you can't always go to someone to affirm you or to tell you you're doing the right thing when you're being paid to do a job. You have to make decisions. And so I personally have someone who I work with who just really is so indecisive. I mean, this isn't just something that, it's like in a workplace setting, but it's an after your entire life, not being able to make decisions without feeling validated. And if you don't mind, I want to share a quick story. There's this person who was so consumed self-doubt that whenever she bought clothing, she would ask other people, like, oh, how does this look? Or what do you think? So there was a situation where she was trying clothing in her dressing room, and she had to go and find a stranger and say, how do I look in this outfit? She had to be affirmed by a stranger to even make a purchase on something that she liked, because she always got herself. And that is not a good place. So you're always looking for validation from someone else. That is not a good place that you want to live in. So let's remove that self-doubt today. Let's remove being indecisive. The next one. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to say something?
No, I'm just applauding that because I feel like I've been that woman, and I'm working that out of my repertoire right now.
Yes, you don't have to seek validation for every single thing that you need to do in life. If it comes down to it, where you're constantly seeking validation from people, then yeah, you may have to do some work, some self-work to overcome that type of doubt. And then the next one is self-sabotage. Now, an example of self-sabotage is, say for instance, you're working out every single day, and then all of a sudden you have a taste of ice cream. You sit down and you have that ice cream. And you're like, oh, here's just one scoop, it's not gonna hurt. But then you go back and you eat the whole thing of ice cream. Like, you literally just sabotage yourself because all that hard work and all the time, even though it's work out to lose weight, and then all of a sudden you literally just sabotaged it. And that is just one example of self-sabotage. But I really see self-sabotage more so when people are in a depression state. When people are going down the rabbit hole of going into a depression. So be careful. Because, all these things syndrome, all these things so much damage. To your health, to the finances. I mean, I've been in a situation where the other someone was really great financial steward, literally, and my credit, and all of a sudden, I was okay. So I made quite the purchases, company would, for credit, and would, okay, it's me, right now. So so different. I don't want what you're doing to yourself in your life. But I just wanted to touch on those as well. The theory, just because they really do need to be touched on a little bit more. Absolutely, especially on now that they're quarantine and you're not socializing the way that you used to. I think it's a higher level of people are suffering from depression, and they not even realize it. There are functional, there is functional depression where we can be doing everything that we normally do, but there's just something that's not quite right, for us. And if we're not able to tap into resources like you or any of the other professionals that may be out there, then we could really be going down that hole that is no good. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I've even had clients come to me that I've actually had to refer to a therapist because I know my lane. I'm a coach. And sometimes when it's too deep, I have to refer them out to a therapist because I'm not a licensed clinical therapist. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah. And that's so important. If you feel like you need help, I think you should get help. Sometimes you don't know that you need help. And so that's when, folks like you, Shar, come in and say, hey, this is beyond my scope, and, this would really do well to get this additional input. So it's like that sometimes. And it's all about listening and keeping our ears open, keeping our hearts open, and keeping our energy right so that we can actually know when things are off. Because I think a lot of times we don't realize when things are off because we're so consumed with everything else that's going on. Especially, those of us who are parents and we're working and doing all these things. It can be hard to keep track on our own energies. So I am gonna just do one last self smooth. Sadly, Irene jumped offline, so she's not gonna answer her question or ask her question. Excuse me. But if anyone else has a question before we go out, I would be happy to welcome you on stage. But otherwise, I am just so grateful for you, Shar. This has been wonderful, and I think it's exactly we got out of it what we needed in order to just be better tomorrow. And that's what it is: one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, and we take it one day at a time. Actually, one minute at a time is what I do, because at every moment, I want to feel like I have a new opportunity to do better, and that encourages me to move forward, and hopefully that also encourages you guys to do the same.
Okay, you just hear you have been amazing. Everybody help just hear you. I think she is so awesome. I appreciate you for interviewing me. And I hope that the information I shared today is so helpful for you all. Again, I do have a free resource, so if you click on my face and go to my Instagram, there's a link in my bio that'll take you to 5 ways to overcome imposter syndrome. And I hope that can provide just some tangible tips for you. But yes, don't forget to affirm yourself and encourage yourself. We can beat this. And like I said, it's not something that goes away. Even celebrities deal with it. There's a saying from Dr. Maya Angelou where and she told herself, she said, "Oh, this is the book we're gonna find out." Basically, what she was find out that she is a fraud. So she has imposter syndrome. And one book, number 11 people. So that doesn't say something. And then Michelle Obama, she talked about it in her book Becoming, how she, still to this day is dealing with imposter syndrome. So it's not something that goes away. You just have to know how to overcome it, how to manage it, how to acknowledge it, so that you can push beyond it and still accomplish what it is that you need to accomplish. So that is what I will leave you all with today. I love it. And one more thing, in addition to affirmations and talking to yourself positively and encouraging, we need to eliminate the negative self-talk as well. And I am like I have been trying to focus on that for myself. I notice it with other people too. And so just checking each other. When you hear someone say something about themselves that they wouldn't accept if someone else said to them, then you need to check them and say, hey, don't talk to yourself like that, because you wouldn't allow someone else to talk to you like that. And sometimes we need a reminder. Sometimes we have to encourage ourselves, as you said, Shar. That's also one of my favorite songs. We have to encourage ourselves, but we have to be kind and gentle and inspiring and encouraging and loving to ourselves as well. And that's what this is all about, right? Self-love. Saturday, loving you. It starts with you. You learn to love you. You learn to love everybody else better. So thank you so much, Shar. This was episode 1. I'm so grateful that you guys joined us today. And yes, please follow me on Instagram, Jasiriously speaking, so that you can keep up with any of the interviews that I do anytime I go live. And feel free to DM me and let me know if you have ideas or suggestions for topics that you want to hear about that will help you kind of further your self-love journey. And then definitely go follow Ms. Shar Smith, because she has all to get down on how you can tackle imposter syndrome. And thank you guys all for coming. Have a great evening. Thank you all. Bye-bye.